Back for another edition of In the Huddle. My man Jason Canfora, along with Carl Dukes. Put them up. Glad that you guys are here. Guys, this football season is flying by already. We're in week 3. And Jason, let's talk about the Monday night games. We had a doubleheader last night as we record this podcast on Tuesday. Philadelphia, they're 3-0. The bottom line is, guys, they're 3-0 teams right now. They're one of them. But I don't even want to say this was the Jalen Hurts flu game, although we found out, I guess, during or after he had flu-like symptoms. He threw for a touchdown. He ran for one, but he threw 2 picks, but they were able to overcome that. And, here the Buccaneers are. We kept saying, all right, when's Baker Mayfield going to come back down to earth? Well, it kind of looked like the Baker Mayfield that we were accustomed to, Jason. So they lose 25-11. Philly's off to their first 3-0 start in back-to-back years since 92-93. So pretty impressive start for the Eagles.
Hats off to the Eagles. And I think sometimes we get caught up, I know I do, too much in style points or trying to dissect every win, right? Or dissect every outing down to the last molecule because you're trying to predict what it means for the following week or what it means for their futures totals or, what it means for the division race, right? But there is this Super Bowl hangover thing that's very real for the team that loses it. And they lost it in a particularly, I think, tough manner, right? Where it looked like they had that, like it looked like they had the Chiefs on the ropes. So they're winning games, man. And they're winning it without having to me, it's like a starting pitcher who could be an ace, right? It's like your number 1 starter. And he's had number 3 starter stuff. His first couple of outings after a long layoff, right? Or maybe, it's kind of like still spring training, or maybe he's coming back from injury. And so the fastball velo is not there the first couple of weeks, right? He's still working through some kinks, but you're still winning the game, right? He's still giving you 17, 18 outs, right? He's pitching into the 6th and you're in decent shape because your other things are there. And so if Hurts is the starter who's, not quite right, but they're giving him run support, and that's what the defense is doing, and that's what the run game's doing, then I'm not going to sit here and bang on the inefficiencies in their passing game or sit here and say how much different Hurts looks now than he did a year ago. I mean, there's some of that going on, but I think there's some of that to be expected. And they're winning, and they're still winning relatively comfortably. It may not be the way aesthetically you want to see it, but I never thought they were losing any of these games. Right. They had special teams and the Mac Jones pick 6 against New England, and then they didn't put them away and they let them hang around. But I never thought the Eagles were losing that game. And I think if you really want to take the glass half full side of it. We talked about this before the season started. The Bulldog bunch is for real. Those kids, those kids, that's the new lifeblood of that defense, man. And you're seeing them all make splash plays. Jordan Davis has taken a big step forward. He's in better shape now. He understands what it means to be a professional. They were able to keep him on a pitch count last year. You look at what he's doing now, man, oh man, right? And Jalen Carter wrecks games. And you're looking at, Dean, you're looking at Dean gets sacks, and you're looking at all these different, and those kids are just scratching the surface. So I don't know that it's going to be like it was last year, where it was an offensive juggernaut and they're destroying everybody by halftime. And yeah, Hurts has to get a little better. But that was a pretty comprehensive win. They really did what they had to do early. They got up on those guys on the road, and they bullied them. You finally saw somebody exploit. I've been waiting for people okay, Ryan Jensen's not their center anymore. When am I watching a game? You know what I mean? Thinking, oh, there we go. And this was it. They got interior pressure, beat them up on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And then they just played raw. That drive to end the game,
was perfect.
I wanted Tampa to get the ball back because I needed another interception at a Baker Mayfield. And it would the last 9 minutes of the game, the Eagles just played keep away.
Yes.
That's pretty pretty impressive stuff what they did in the trenches. So people who are like wanting to write them off, the imminent demise of the Eagles is vastly overrated.
Yeah. Fly, Eagles, fly. Here's the thing. 4-5 in that last drive for Jalen, and he ran for a first down. So he goes 4-5 passing, runs for a first down, and game's over. Like, that was masterful. And when you need Jalen to play that way, like, that's what impressed me last year, is this is one of those drives where we need you to be great. We need you to make plays. He does it. They also ran for over 200 yards, and I just want to make this a part of this narrative as we're in week 3. They were the 5th best rushing team last year, guys, in the NFL. Their identity is running football. And Swift last night, I think he had 130 yards or whatever it was. This is who they are. So they're still going to run the football. Jason's right. They're going to shut you down defensively. And then when the game's on the line, they feel like their quarterback can put him on their shoulders and do what he did last night and say, hey, I'm not giving you the ball back. The Eagles are going to be fine. They've got arguably the best roster in the league, Jason, outside of San Francisco. So I'm with you. This was kind of like, all right, they're not going to blow people out. Teams are going to give them their best shot. But just know this, 12 of the past 14 teams to start 3-0 have made it to the playoffs. And we're talking about going from last year even into this year. It's just kind of what it is. So I expect them to be there at the end of the season, barring no serious injuries. But they were who we thought they were last night, right? That's what this is.
Yeah, and look, they're pretty well coached, and Hurts had some throws he'd want back, but they don't really beat themselves. And yeah, when they want to just default to let's ride a couple of different running backs, let's ride this offensive line, third and short, we got our quarterback who's stronger than your quarterback, and he's going to pick it up, and we'll just keep the clock moving. Like they are a professional grade, week in, week out winning operation. And I don't really know who else is in the NFC. You mentioned San Francisco. I'll certainly buy that. We know that, since Christian McCaffrey came to town, they pretty much win regular season football games. And after that, like, again, I don't know. You tell me,
No, listen, Cowboys got
Cowboys.
Exposed,
Look,
we're going to get to.
The Cowboys, right? Can the Cowboys handle a success? Can they even handle September's success? Like, what? No. I'll buy the Cowboys when I see the Cowboys, right? I said it, on the other side of Thanksgiving, beating teams they're not supposed to beat and handling the ones they're supposed to. So, like, that is what it is. The North, you know what I mean? Like, the Lions are probably on the come, but they've had some injuries.
Yeah, but
Seattle's very shaky. Like,
yeah, but in a playoff game, I don't trust the Lions. Let's just say they had to go to Philly right now. Like, what we know. They're not beating the Eagles, right? Yeah. So I know there's a lot of football to be played. Let's talk about the Bengals, who avoid 0-3. Jason La Canfora, Carl Dukes. It's In the Huddle, guys. Follow us, subscribe, and also check out In the Huddle Pod on YouTube. We appreciate you guys making us one of the top podcasts on Odyssey, and it's been great to get the season started. Of course, Brian Baldinger, part of this podcast. He'll be with us on Thursday, and we'll talk about the upcoming games. Bengals avoid 0-3. They win by 3, and full disclosure, I bet this last night, right? Because I said, there's no way, Jason, Bengals are going to go 0-3. Problem is, I got to push. But they win the game, and Burrow basically said, listen, it's worth the risk for me to play versus us going 0-3. I don't think he's going to be 100%, Jason, the entire season, bro. I just don't. I mean, like, last night, he didn't look like Joe Burrow, but he was out there, and they were able to pull out a victory. But tell me what you think about the Bengals, because, this is a team, again, we thought should be, and I still think they could be a playoff team, but it's all going to depend on this calf, man.
Yeah. I love the under in this game. I thought it'd be a kick fest. I don't buy either of these offenses in the red zone right now. And I definitely buy the Bengals defense. The Rams defense, as long as Aaron Donald keeps playing like he is certainly better than what we saw for a lot of last year. So it kind of was what I thought it would be. The Stafford interceptions were obviously huge. But the Bengals, the last couple of years at home, they give up 18 a game at home. San Francisco, the Rams score 14 on the road. So this was kind of, what I thought it would be. There's still no downfield thrust to the Bengals passing game whatsoever. The occasional crosser between the numbers. But, those bombs away to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins outside the numbers, that's not that they're not even pretending they think they can do it, let alone executing it. Like there's the threat.
What do you think of Mixon? What do you think of Mixon? Because I feel like that's part of this, right? That it's not a great run game.
No, I think Orlando Brown has his faults at left tackle, but you can run behind Orlando Brown and you can exert your will behind Orlando Brown. And I think they're doing some of that. I think a lot of that also is Burrow's calf and just trying to navigate things and keep him upright and get through games. I mean, he dropped back and threw a lot, but the ball didn't go very far, and the ball came out quickly. And most of the time, the ball went to Jamar Chase to see what he could do with a lot of it in the slot. Like it's very pedestrian. It's very like, to me, kind of like survival mode. Like what can we do to win this game and not get our quarterback killed? And they're relying on their defense and their kicking game. They got a kicker who, 55, whatever, doesn't scare him. Nobody flinches, right? He's not one of these guys who needs altitude or needs a dome. He does it in a division where you're playing in the elements pretty much every week. So I just think it was a smart approach by Zach Taylor. Like, I'm not going to try to put on the show here. This is not the week to try to flex our muscles. We still have some issues, but we got to win this football game. I don't think the Rams are a great team. I think we'll look back on what they did week 1 at Seattle and say that was their Super Bowl. Like, they've been terrible on third down since that game. They're terrible in the red zone, and they haven't been able to score points on the road, like I said, in a couple of years. And the quarterback, when he gets out of sort of the creature comforts and he goes on the road and he starts getting hit, there's usually – and now he doesn't have Cooper Kupp, right, who can just throw everything to. Then you're probably going to see some inefficiencies and turnovers, and we have. Neither team ran the ball as much as I thought in the first half. Like, as someone who was way on the under, like, I'm like, why have these teams run like a collective 13 times in the first half when neither has a passing game that you would hang your hat on right now? And yeah, I think Mixon is fine, and I think Mixon's touches will continue to go up, and I think that, again, for as much as we talked about them and all their offensive wizardry, and they were, the AFC's big play offense for a period of time, they don't even think they're that anymore. They don't even show it as like a feint, as a deep, as a, well, just in case you thought we didn't do it. Like, it's not, that's not what they're trying to be. That's not who they are. We'll see if that changes over time. But yeah, they won. They know how to win games. And the defense is, the defense is legit, and the young safeties are figuring a few things out each week. And really, look, that game also, to me, more than anything else, is I didn't think the Rams had an offensive line coming into the season. And again, through week 1, you're like, whew. But since then, it kind of is what we thought it was. And Hubbard and Hendrickson weren't getting off against anybody the first couple of weeks, including a bunch of Ravens backups. And they really whipped the Rams and had their way with them. And again, when you put Stafford under that kind of pressure, as much as he's been hit this deep in his career, there's probably going to be a mistake or two. So can those guys bring it? Is that Bengals front four going to be able to play like that with some consistency? If they can, then that takes things up another notch. They were kind of, those guys didn't look like themselves the first couple of weeks, or I was starting to wonder if they'd hit the wall.
They lost their left tackle and Joe Noteboom, their right guard, last night also. So that offensive line now is even in more trouble. Stafford sacked 6 times. He throws 2 picks, to Jason's point. And I'm with you. At this point in Stafford's career, he's not as elusive as he once was to be able to maneuver the pocket like that. And now you've got 2 other injuries on that offensive line. So Rams are in trouble. I mean, we knew they were not going to be, at least we thought they weren't going to be as good. But they're in trouble. And I agree with you as far as the Bengals. Everybody just wants to point to last year like, they won 12 of their last 14 games. That doesn't happen every year, guys. It's like the Vikings winning 11 games by 1 score. That's not going to happen this year. So I can't look at last year and say
they might lose 11. They might lose 11 by 1 score this year. Like that's the trend.
It is.
The trend.
But we can't look at that and say that's going to happen for the Bengals. So good win for the Bengals. I am just telling you guys right now, the Burrow thing, guys, he could roll out and tweak that damn calf and be done. So we just got to keep a close eye on it, but I'm glad he played last night. The NFL needs its stars. Jason Lock-on-4, Carl Dukes. Let's talk about a couple of other games that got our attention, specifically the Dolphins. I think you use the term 70 burger, don't you? Well, what's the term you use, Jason?
I hadn't before because I hadn't had a reason to. I mean, I figured it existed in a mythical world. My kids losing to somebody on Madden and then hearing a bunch of expletives and looking at the scoreboard and be like, dude, that guy hung 72 on you? How do you even score 72 points? But in the real world, I don't know what blows me away. For some reason, for me, like watching the game, but then it gets to be a blowout in the second half. So you're trying to focus on 6 things at once, or there were 9 games going on, but there was like 5 or 6 that I was really watching. And then that one moves to like the secondary, right? Because it's over. But you knew they'd scored a lot of points. But like when I got back to the game book, and I'm taking my notes, the 726 I couldn't get past. Like that to me, even more than the 70 points, because it's like you think, oh well, maybe there was I missed a kickoff return. I missed a punt return. Like I missed Russell running the wrong way. You know what I mean? And sacking him, like safetying himself. Like for some reason, the 70 points computed more than the 700. Like the 726. I'm like Mike effing White played like the final 4 possessions of that game. They rolled up 726 yards. When they weren't trying to move the ball anymore, you know what I mean? When they're up by 40, and it's like they're really not trying. I don't think McDaniel's like, let me get both my running backs 4 touchdowns. Like I don't think that was the plan. Like I don't think he's got any bad blood with Sean Payton. It's just that the Broncos defense was so horrible. They're just going to run the ball, and they still couldn't stop it. 726 yards.
Jason, I got to ask you this. Did the Broncos quit? Did that defense quit on Sean Payton?
I think they had to. 726 yards. This was regulation. You know what I mean? This was not a nip and tuck game that went through all 10 minutes of overtime. Like
they quit.
Thought of this sooner.
They quit.
Like I'm going to look at like yards per minute that they were on the field. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm just trying to do the math in my head. Like what could that? Like it's a 60-minute game, and the Rams, the Broncos did have the ball on offense. Like whatever it was, 40 minutes. Like how many yards per freaking minute is that? Like it's the NFL. This Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, I was blown away. It's the most points scored in a game since 1966. That was 72 by the Giants in 66, which is, again, is still unheard of. Tyreek Hill had 157 yards and 9 catches and didn't play the fourth quarter, okay? They scored on 8 of 9 drives. Get it, score. Get it, score. Get it, score. It's unbelievable. Like, and as I watched this game back, because I had to see it, Jason, I was like, how did they do this? And I'm watching, and about the 5th drive of this game where the Broncos realized they couldn't stop these dudes, they just start giving up plays. And I'm like, ooh, this doesn't look good. And let's be honest. Let's talk about Sean Payton for a second. Dolphins win 70-20. All that crap Sean Payton was talking in the offseason, okay? He didn't talk about the Dolphins, but he talked about Nathaniel Hackett, and whether you agreed with it or not, he broke the code, Jason. And so now people are saying this is karma, bro. This is how this comes back on a coach who said some of the things he said publicly about other coaches and the way that he's going about his business. Either way, this is ugly for Sean Payton.
Oh, it's bad. 22 points per minute. So the defense was on the field for 33 minutes. Again, this was not like they were on the field for 46 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it was three yards in a cloud of dust. Like the Dolphins were scoring quickly, big plays to get the lead. 22 yards per minute.
That's nuts. I mean,
That's crazy to me. I've never even thought of a football game in those terms. But it's and you know when you watch a football game and you take the commercials out and you take all the ancillary BS out for penalties and everything, it's like 18 minutes of actual action.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
So these guys giving up 22 yards per minute when most of the minute is dudes standing in a huddle, like waiting. You know what I mean?
Right.
As the clock ticks. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you this. I think it's going to be a long time before Sean Payton utters anything about Nathaniel Hackett. I think he's going to – and look, Nathaniel Hackett is a joke, but I think he's going to keep Nathaniel Hackett's name out of his mouth for a long time, Carl. I think there's got to be a moratorium on him saying anything about the 2022 Broncos until he wins a playoff game. And I like Sean a lot. Something. But
I do too.
Nobody wants to hear about 2022. You've already said to Nathaniel Hackett, hold my beer. You thought you did some ish. Watch this. In our first road game, we're gonna go down to the South Beach and give up 22 yards a minute on defense.
It's unreal. By the way, Tua leads the NFL in passing. All right, no surprise with the numbers we're giving you, but we were all concerned about the concussions and can he stay healthy. Guys, we may be looking at the MVP with Tua Tagovailoa. Jason, we might be looking at this guy winning the MVP this season.
Oh yeah,
it's nuts.
Again, long season. They've got to keep him upright, and they've got to be smart, and I think they will be. And I respect the hell out of that young man, and I hope he's able to play a full season, because if he does, this is going to be this is going to be something. You think they need Dalvin Cook? Huh? You think that? No. If you watch that with the Jets, you think they need Dalvin Cook? I don't.
I'm glad you said this. Raheem Mostert, 3 rushing touchdowns, right? Second week in a row where he's had multiple rushing touchdowns. He was with the 49ers when McDaniel was there. And he comes over to the Dolphins, and the one guy who believed in him was McDaniel. And everybody else is like, oh, they need this guy, to your point. And McDaniel's sitting there chilling like, do we? Look at what this guy's doing.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
And I got this other dude nobody's even heard of, and he's going to go off too. Like, Achane, I don't know anything. Like, he showed up in that game, you know what I mean? And I'm like, and then he just never stopped showing up. I'm like,
who is this dude? Yeah.
Okay.
It's they got some players. Backs. They got offense and players all across the board.
One other sort of yes. And they got Armstead back, their left tackle, and he's settled in, and there's a lot to like there. That'll be a hell of an interesting game between them and the Bills. But I found this interesting. And as much as Denver, I mean, again, that was historically bad. And yeah, it looked like some dudes were ready to get on that plane at halftime. How about the fact that the 0-3 Denver Broncos, coming off one of the worst defensive performances in the history of the league, now go to Chicago in week 4, back-to-back road games for a team that hasn't won yet, and they're 3.5-point favorites.
It's unreal.
What does that tell you about the Chicago Bears?
They're terrible.
The Chicago Bears are on the cusp of becoming the first team in NFL history to lose 14 straight games while giving up 25 points or more. They've tied the 63-64 Denver Broncos, doing it 13 times in a row. And now Denver, that woeful Denver team, comes to town, and Denver's laying 3.5 at Chicago.
It's nuts from the standpoint of the way both teams have looked so far. But here's the deal. We know this, Jason. Sean Payton's not going anywhere. Matt Eberfluss probably is. Sean Payton is not going anywhere. So Denver could even lose this game, and he's not going anywhere because of the circumstances and everything. Eberfluss, I think, is playing for his job. I think we've gotten to that point. And Justin Fields, whether you think the kid is good or not, he's regressed. He doesn't look right. Yeah. You can tell me the team and the talent sucks and it's no good, which might be true. but Eberfluss is playing for his job this weekend.
Yeah. That spread to me was interesting. It opened at 2.5 on Saturday, and even though Denver
Are you on it?
No,
jump on it?
Not yet. I'll look into it later in the week. I don't know either of those teams. I'll probably sit that one out. But I just found it interesting that Denver got destroyed the way they did, and Chicago got destroyed too. But I mean, it was at Kansas City, and everybody expected it, and it wasn't a 70 burger. And by Sunday night, Denver had picked up steam, and Denver went from a 2.5-point favorite to a 3.5-point favorite after that performance. I just found it interesting. Vegas knows.
Well, everybody thinks, right, like, you're going to come off that loss. They're going to be motivated. They'll get right against the Bears, who are terrible. So it makes sense, even though it's on the road. But I think that's kind of the thinking. But it is an interesting number. Jason, let's talk about, how about them Cowboys? They lose on the road 28-16. People said this was a trap game. Did you buy into that?
Well, look, I think if they're who they pretend to be, it's not a trap game, because we talked about this a little bit last week. And one of the reasons I thought they would continue to flex their bully muscles is because Mike McCarthy, we're in week 3, and all he's got to do is go back to week 2 and week 1, the only 2 weeks we played football, and say, look what happened to teams in our division when they took these guys for granted. Washington's down at the half, barely beats them. Giants trailed by 28 at one point, right? Had to scramble, came back to beat them. What were the odds that you know what I mean? You can play that way. We can't be them. You won't talk about people quitting or whatever. I'm not going to say. I mean, I just think some dudes didn't show up. Their best selves didn't show up. They didn't think they needed their best selves to win this game. I mean, I thought they got pushed around in the first half, and then it put a lot of pressure on that offense to have to do some things that they haven't had to do this year, because they've been playing with a lead. They've been getting defensive scores. They've been getting special team scores. They've been playing against completely inept operations like the New York Jets, who are trying to win without a quarterback. And yes, that's definitely better than Zach Wilson. And so it became a situation where, oh, man, we got it. Not only do we have to straight up beat these guys, but we got to come from behind to do it, make up ground. And it didn't bring out the best in them. But the Cardinals came out and they established Connor early. And again, it looked like they were pissed off that it was a road game in their own stadium. You know what I mean? And I think they were probably a little pissed off that the whole world is coronating the Cowboys. And you know what I mean? They're 2 touchdown favorites. And they're like, well, we have played pretty hard. We have kept these games close, and we have been way more competitive than anybody thought we were going to be, because everybody thought we're tanking. And yeah, the owner is trying to tank, but they're not making it easy for him. So
the players play.
Yeah. And they came out and they took it to him in the first half. And look, I'm not a big McCarthy guy. So do I think McCarthy's going to have the best play calls to dig them out of holes? Like, do I think he gets better as the situation gets tougher? No, not at all. And he's uber conservative. And when they had to open it up a little bit, you saw some turnovers and stuff. So look, the Cowboys will make the playoffs because it's the NFC. I don't consider the Cowboys a Super Bowl threat. I don't think the Cowboys are coming out of the NFC. I didn't think it after their 2 big wins. And they'll go off and they'll beat a bunch of bad teams the next few weeks, and I still won't think it. And that's the end all and be all, but I just don't like the way they can never handle, like, they just can't really handle success. When the owner is the GM and the owner is your biggest cheerleader and the owner is that involved in it, and the owner always thinks he has the best roster in football and always thinks, it's his birthright to win a whole bunch of games and do it his way. It just that paradigm doesn't work. I do not believe it'll work. I certainly don't think it's going to work for Jerry Jones. And so, yeah, you come out and you're flat and you're not as good offensively as people think you are, and you're not really great playing from behind. And you show me anything they've done in the red zone, even in their wins, where you're like, oh, that was interesting. Or, wow, where'd McCarthy come up with that? Like,
they didn't have to.
I don't know, man.
in these first
right?
two wins.
I just think they
didn't
figure
have to.
their players will go out there and win, you know. And then, well, what if they don't, or what if things don't go our way? You know, they've got talent. They'll win a bunch of regular season games, but I don't buy them. I fade the Cowboys every year.
Let me get on the record now. It's In the Huddle, guys. In the Huddle pod on YouTube. Subscribe, like us. Make sure you check us out and don't miss an episode. This game is why I don't trust Dak. And I heard Dak say after the game, you guys got what you wanted. Who's you? The media? Nobody's rooting against you, Dak Prescott. Here's where I want to go on the record. 3 minutes to play. You could go down and score, and he throws a pick. How are you going to play in a bigger game against the 49ers as you did last year on the road if you've got to do that again? How are you going to play against the Eagles in the playoffs on the road possibly when you've got to do this? Week 3, Dak, you needed to go down and score and you throw a pick with 3 minutes left. This is why I don't trust you. So I just want to go on the record. Super nice guy, would want him to date my daughter, has nothing to do with football. Has nothing to do with the football aspect of things. And him calling us out, Jason, as if, well, the media got what they wanted. They wanted to see the Cardinals beat us is crap, okay? Stop making excuses. Start making plays. That's where I'm at with Dak Prescott, and that's why the defense is unbelievable. But when you need it, 3 minutes in a game, and I got to go score on the road, you couldn't do it against the Cardinals? Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, and again, Sam Howell found a way. Daniel Jones found a way. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't sexy. They didn't light up. Well, Jones ended up lighting up the box score by the fourth quarter. But, yeah, I they'll always give me pause, man. I just can't.
I see.
I just can't back them. I just can't. I just can't back them.
I want to ask you about a team that maybe you can back. But I'm not sure. I'm watching, Jason, and you're closer to it with the Ravens. So I want to get your take on this. This offense is, okay, it's all right. Yeah. But how the hell do you lose to the Colts when they don't even have Anthony Richardson this weekend?
Yeah, or Jonathan Taylor, or, Ryan Kelly, their center. Are
they getting killed in Baltimore?
Really, they're kind of playing without a tight end. They're not getting killed. I mean, because they had 8 starters out, but like they always have guys out, and the Colts had guys out too. And people are upset. I mean, John Harbaugh blew an opportunity to call a timeout. He had Zay Flowers fair catch a punt after the Ravens defense produced a safety that should have put the game away in the fourth quarter. And basically they botched that sequence. They should have taken the game under the 2-minute warning. They didn't. That extra timeout ended up being a big deal. All they needed was a first down and multiple. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely coaching blunder. Now there was a long delay as they tried to figure out exactly when Gardner Minshew stepped out and when where the clock should be reset. But there was still plenty of time for them to get things straight on the sidelines. And then in that situation, they had timeouts to spare. So you could have just called a timeout to make sure that the rookie Zay Flowers knew we're no longer in a fair catch situation. Now we need to get this clock under 2 minutes. Look, they put the ball on the ground 4 times, lost a couple of them. They had 3 straight sequences where they're up 7-0. Kenyon Drake has a long run, gets stripped from behind, fumbles. The next drive ends on a Lamar Jackson fumble that he pounced on. The next drive ends on a lost fumble that turns into a touchdown, lost fumble deep in their territory. Then the next drive ends on a bad snap fumble for a field goal. Colts go up 10-7 at the half. Look, and then the Ravens in the fourth quarter, even though Justin Tucker misses a field goal he normally makes, it was 61 yards in the rain. Like, it shouldn't be considered automatic for anybody. They stopped throwing the ball. The Todd Monken showed no faith, their new offensive coordinator, in their passing game whatsoever. And they had opportunities on 2nd and 3rd down to try to throw for a first down, to put the game away, and they didn't do it. They just kept running, and it got predictable. And there's a lot of stats in this game that will blow your mind. But this one, like if you're talking about how the Ravens were supposed to evolve under Todd Monken, this one was like quintessential Greg Roman, their old offensive coordinator. In the second half and overtime, because this game went deep into overtime, that's a lot of extra football. In the second half and overtime, the Ravens ran 23 rushing plays for 5.1 yards per carry. They ran 24 pass attempts for 4.7 yards per attempt.
Wow. That explains
it.
You
want to talk about going back to the future in the worst way possible. And that's with a backup offensive line that wasn't playing that well. That's with the running game that outside of Lamar Jackson, and they defaulted to Lamar Jackson off-script runs all over the place. It looked like it did, at the depths of the Greg Roman era, where, hey, Lamar, just scramble and bail us out. Like, that's what they became against the Colts defense that didn't really have any corners. So, yeah, there's concern. And now they go to Cleveland, whose defense is – the Cleveland Browns through 3 weeks have allowed opponents to run 4 total plays in their red zone for minus 12 yards, Carl. That's on the season. We're going into week 4. Opposing teams have run 4 plays in the red zone against the Browns for minus 12 yards. And then they've got Pittsburgh and Watt and Highsmith and all that at Pittsburgh the week after that.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think there's reasons to – where I thought this stretch would be the reason they wouldn't make the playoffs. They played all 3 of their division opponents on the road within the first 5 weeks of the season, and I thought that would be a problem for them so early in this new regime with Todd Monken. We'll see. It may be. I'll just say the one thing, there's certain teams right now who, if all things are equal or even close to equal, bet the under. The Ravens are one of those. The Saints are one of those. Like, there are now trends that go way back to last season where unless they're setting, and unless it's early in the week and they're already setting that total at 38.5 or something like that, like when you see Ravens totals and you see Saints totals around 42.5, 43.5, even 41.5 at the beginning of the week, I would jump on those at the beginning of the week. Those are under teams. Under.
Yeah. It's crazy. 4 field goals, by the way. All of them beyond 50 yards in this game for the Colts. Crazy stuff. All right, Jason, before we wrap up and get out of here, let's talk about the Jags and the Texans. D'Amico Ryans, congratulations. And by the way, congratulations to Jonathan Gannon. We talked about the Cardinals, his first win as a head coach. D'Amico Ryans as a head coach. They did. Yeah. And for the Texans, okay. Listen, this C.J. Stroud kid, starting to look the part. He's starting to look the part. 280 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's got 906 yards and no picks. So he's the first quarterback with 4 touchdowns, over 900 yards, and no picks in his first 3 games in the NFL as a quarterback. They keep these weird stats. Just laying it out there to you guys. Stroud looks like he's going to be okay. Looks like he's going to be a guy. But the Texans beat up on the Jets. What the hell happened to the Jaguars?
Well, they're not a good September team. I think the Jags haven't won a game in September since 2021. Houston has had the Jags number for years, even though, the players have changed and the names on the back of the jerseys have changed. Like, I have some friends who, and look, I took Baltimore in the Survivor, so I'm not saying I'm right. I should have taken Miami. They were my second pick. But I tried to talk some people out of Jacksonville here, and I'm pretty sure Jacksonville was by far and away the most used team in Survivor polls. Just Houston's kind of had their number, and Houston's now 6-0 straight up in their last 6 road games against the AFC South. Like, they've given Jacksonville fits. Trevor Lawrence is not off to a great start. They're not running the ball, particularly well. They don't have bite in the pass rush. They play stout against the run, but Jacksonville looks like a young team that maybe hasn't done the best job in the world at handling all their success from a year ago. And then Houston, you look at this young man has had to go at Baltimore, which traditionally one of the best home field advantages in football. And I know he lost the game, but like he won the war. Like he lost the battle, but he won the war. He showed he could handle some tough stuff with a bunch of backup offensive linemen in his first start. And now he goes and gets a road win at Jacksonville that we all crowned as the AFC South champs before the season started. Hell, I thought they could mess around and flirt with a 1 seed when you looked at their schedule. He navigates the pocket expertly. I love his feet. I love the way his eyes and his feet are paired as he manipulates things when it's not perfect. His ball placement accuracy is plus. His decision-making is plus. That defense is only going to continue to get better. Will Anderson is absolutely a thing. We're starting to see the kid Tank Dell, who looked really good in the preseason. Now that's manifesting itself in the regular season. Nico Collins is a better receiver than I think people think. Like, that division to me is going to be really sort of interesting. Because Richardson will come back for the Colts, and they've already won a game nobody thought they were going to win. And now Jacksonville, like, they've got Atlanta in London. Do I think they win that game? I mean, probably. But, brother, if they come back without winning that game, like, all of a sudden, things get real weird there. Like, Tennessee's clearly has limitations, but Vrabel will find a way to beat a couple teams you think they have no right beating. Like, that division could be much more of a free-for-all than any of us thought. And the young quarterbacks, the rookie quarterbacks, will probably have something to do with it. But, yeah, like, that spread to me, I'm looking at that spread. It got over 10 in some markets. I'm like, boy, that's not – what have you seen out of Jacksonville that makes you think they're beating, you know, a team with a pass rush by 2 touchdowns or 12 points or whatever? So, yeah, I thought Houston was live in that spot.
Yeah.
And yes, CJ Stroud, some advanced scouts told me in the summer that he's way better than you're giving him credit for. And that football team is way more talent than people are giving him credit for. And they were right. And again, even in that loss week 1 to Baltimore, you could look at them and say, wow, that does not look like some of these rookie operations where it's first-time head coach. You know what I mean? New coordinators and a brand spanking new rookie quarterback fresh from college. Like that, you can look at that in some places week 1 and already know at least a couple of those cats ain't ready for this just yet. Not the Houston Texans.
Here's what's crazy, Jason. Stroud has looked better than Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson, for his time on the field, has looked better than Bryce Young. I don't know who's going to be the best quarterback out of those 3, but we're already comparing them, and Stroud looks like the better player right now. So we're going to see where this goes. They've won, by the way, here's a crazy stat for you, 16 of the past 19 against the Jaguars. The Texans have their number. It's nuts. All right. And by the way, Calvin Ridley, catch the ball. He had 3 drops, 2 in the end zone. So you talk about, Ridley and his impact.
Go back and look at Calvin Ridley after the second quarter of the first game on. He had a monster game in the first half of the first game, and then the last the last 10 quarters of football he's played, not so good.
Yeah, not so good. Jason, man, great job as always. Follow Jason. Read him in the Washington Post, guys. Jason La Canfora. Of course, Baldy, a part of this podcast as well. Check out Baldy's breakdowns. He'll be here Thursday. We'll talk about the games upcoming. We'll talk about some betting as well. And also, follow me. I'm Carl Dukes. Put them up. And we appreciate you guys being here each and every week. We'll put out a new episode a little bit later on this week, looking ahead to week 4. And we've got a game in London, by the way. Speaking of the Jags, Falcons, Jags. So we get early football Sunday morning. I think it's 9 o'clock, 9 or 9:30. So we'll talk about that coming up as we start to see some of these games now overseas as we get into the meat of the NFL season here. Jason, man, have a great day. Great stuff. And guys, thank you for being here. Brother. Subscribe. All right, guys, in the huddle. We'll see you next time.